And so lame lame ass nigga said when you die with kids, you can feel as if you left something on this planet. And then Derek Victory Roy Robo or Roybo says if you live your life right, you would still leave an impact on people. Even better, leave behind systems that further help people or ideas that inspire people you were close to. You can leave art behind, but no one says you must make a masterpiece in your life. You can leave behind good policy, but no one says you must be a politician to create meaning. You can leave good people you inspire behind, but no one says you have to be a mentor. You can leave a child behind, but it doesn't mean you have to. Maybe you can create better art or better policy or even better philosophy than you can create a child. If you don't have the tools to paint a picture, then you don't have to. If you don't the resources to raise a good child, you don't have to. So what we're seeing here with this little conversation is, lame mad nigga is bringing up this sense of fulfillment and purpose that comes from having kids. And that's one thing that I would never deny. I think there's a lot of power and sense of purpose that comes with that. Sometimes I see like little kids and shit, and oh my god, it's just so adorable. I love kids, and but the thing with me, and the reason why I don't that's not a reason that I would use to justify having kids, is because you're doing it primarily for yourself. Like, you're having kids not because the world is such a great place and because you've set up a great life for them and the government is not corrupt and trying to fuck your kids up and take advantage of them. You're doing it because you want to feel better as you exit the world. And again, I get it. I get it, man. Like, the sense of purpose and everything that comes with that. But like I said, because it's inherently about you, it's not about the kid, it's about how you feel. That's why I can't use that as a justification for having kids, though I understand it. Shit, man, death is an ugly reality that we all have to face. And I think having kids, leaving that biological footprint on the earth, it's one of the best ways to kind of cope with that. It's one of the best ways to deal with that fear. So I get what he's saying. It's just, that's why I can't justify doing it. And then, Derek here, he talks about other ways in which you can leave an impact on the world, leave things behind. And I think really that's my goal. If I leave anything, I want to have left being a positive influence on other people. Of course, making entertaining music and content and things like that. But again, those stories where people tell me that I, help them overcome depression and suicidal thoughts and gave them encouragement to face life and to live. Those are the type of impacts that I want to have on people. That's what I want my legacy to be, that I was a positive influence on other people by sharing my experiences as I aim to better myself and things like that. All that work to compensate not having a kid is crazy. I don't know. I mean, it's just, you don't have to do that either. you ain't got to do shit. You can not have kids and not try to, having a legacy or leaving an impact isn't even important for everybody. But then also, when you think about it, when you talk about work, having kids is a lot of work too. So it's like, you really just, you picking your battles, really. And then Drink Water says, I don't think you feel anything when you dead. And that's what I was talking about before. Nobody gives a fuck. and when you're dead, you ain't gonna give a fuck. And then Kitty A says, your kids could grow up to be shooters. Your kids could grow up to hate you, pedos, and more. In the end, you die alone with or without your kids. Your kids are likely going to be poor. Most people are poor and will still be poor. And it's more than likely, you're gonna die alone. Like I don't know, people have this idea like they're gonna die, that their death is gonna be the ending of BioShock. In BioShock the game, if you don't harvest the little sisters in order to empower yourself to make the game easier, they all grow up and they become like your surrogate daughters. It's a beautiful ending, don't get me wrong. And it's like, as you're laying in your deathbed, they're all there with you and they're holding your hand as it's beautiful. I love it. I'm not gonna lie, bro. To go out like that, A1. A1. I love that ending. One of the best video game endings ever. But that's largely fantasy. You know, even people who are fortunate to have like a big family as they leave this earth, you know, a lot of times you die in a fucking car accident going to work, you know, or something like that, fucking all by yourself, or you're in a nursing home and 90% of your brain is jello because you're in the late stages of dementia. So you don't even recognize the people around you, if anybody is there. I'm not trying to be pessimistic here, just more realistic, you know, is that with the way people, because you want to talk about cope. For a lot of people, you know, kids and marriage and those things are really a cope for the fears and the pains of aging and death. That's why when people say, you know, when you get older, you'll regret not finding a man, not finding a husband or wife or having a kid. And I always thought about that. Like, why is it always some far off thing? Like, if it's that bad, wouldn't it suck today? But I realized that it's because a lot of people use those things to, they use those things to help deal with the fears of aging, the fears of loneliness and death. You know, and again, I'm not judging. I get it. I have those same fears, man. I just feel like for me, I'm just not in the business of trying to use somebody else to deal with that. I feel like it's my job to deal with those fears and not to have a kid just to put them in front of the fear and make myself feel better. That's not, for me, that's not a good reason to have a kid. Just because of fear of dying alone ain't the reason. Not for me. And so Pretty Boy Red says on the same video, I'm definitely too young to have kids, 22, but I always like the idea because it almost gives me the idea of being immortal or something. Like, I get not wanting kids, but to me, there's something about dying and knowing I got blood out there for real. I don't know. I love the videos, bro. No, and I get it. And, you know, I'm not trying to shit on people who have that mindset because, like I said, there's so much power in that. You know, the power, because we're not immortal. We all have to get old and die. But just the fact that we can replicate our genes, that you can have a child and you can see the resemblance, you know, you can see your face and you're like, dude, I get it. That's why I'm not an anti-natalist. And, you know, people just, and on top of that, I love my life. Like, I'm happy. I'm enjoying my life. But I think a lot of it for me is because I understand that a lot of my ability to enjoy life is really out of my hand. I put a lot of work in to make my life better, but there are a lot of things that I have to be thankful for and appreciative of because I really didn't have a role in that. You know, what if I was born a fucking slave in the 1700s, getting fucked by the white man, getting butt broken, you know, shit like that. Like, people imagine being born under circumstances like that. You're born in fucking the Aztec society, the Mayan society. You fucking sacrifice. They cut your heart out while you're alive, and it's, you know, born during World War II, and you know you get drafted. You know, you're a German soldier during World War II in Stalingrad, starving to death. And then there's a bunch of crazy Russians with flamethrowers kicking down the door. Like, I'm just saying, bro, like, we have to appreciate how lucky we are to live in a relative time of peace. Or even just now in today's era, being born in Gaza, starving to death because you're 5 years old in Gaza. I mean, come on, man. And that's largely why I don't want to have kids, because I recognize that the life I enjoy, a lot of the good fortune that I have is just really just being lucky. You know, I put a lot of work in, but I'm very lucky too. But at the same time, like I said, I get people wanting to have kids for that, you know, the satisfaction of beating death in a sense, You essentially copy yourself, and this little man looks like you, or this little girl looks like you, and it's like, yeah, motherfucker, I'm still here. And so, oh, okay. I made a poll. I said, will Chad Marco make it to 34 as a virgin? Don't vote with emotion. Vote like you have money on the line or something like that. And shit, do it, Suke. It says, I say if you really want to lose your virginity, you may hire an escort to assist you at any time. Additionally, as more years pass, you have more experience as an adult to possibly navigate through looking for the right escort for you. Now, if we're talking about losing your virginity in a monogamous relationship, then it will definitely be more difficult as you age, since your looks would naturally deteriorate the older you are, reducing the chances someone will authentically be attracted to you. So he was looking at it just very logically. If you can always get an escort. You know what's funny? Anytime that I looked at an escort site, like, because just me being into porn and nasty shit in general, every now and then I'll check out those sort of things. Like when Backpage was up, List Crawler, and I look at it and it's like, I don't get, like, I get why guys would want to just pay for sex. But to me, those women are just so disgusting, bro. Like, some of them look good, but it's just like knowing how they live, that they fuck men, like they fuck any and all men, just about. Now, some of them, no AAs. Some of them do have, standards. But for the most part, they just let any guy who will pay the price into their body. And you're like the seventh, eighth dude that it's just and I'm not trying to be judgmental, I'm all for sex workers doing their thing. I'm just saying, for me, it's just it's a very unattractive lifestyle. So when I look at stuff like that, I'm like, bro, I ain't trying to be touching on these girls. They've been getting nutted on and fucked all day. So that's just not for me. So with that to the side, I'm 33 now. I still look pretty young. I still have my boyish good looks. I'm in great shape physically. But yeah, one day I'm gonna be looking like an old crusty pair of ball sack, an old crusty scrotum. Oh man, and definitely not gonna be able to attract much looking like that. But really, I thought about that, like the whole looks thing. Like, yeah, I enjoy being young and able-bodied and things like that, but my looks never got me any pussy anyway. So why should I care about, girls not wanting to fuck me or being attracted to me because I'm old, 50, 60 years old. So they didn't want to fuck me when I was 20. They didn't want to fuck me when I was 15, 20, 25, 30 in general. It might have been some fat girls here and there, but I feel like the aging thing is worse for people who had it. Like, if you were Chad, tall, square jaw, big dicketed, all that nice face, and you got to enjoy it, and then you see like the pussy numbers start dropping off as you age, and you start balding and getting fat and stuff like that. I think it's worse for them. But for me, like, my biggest fear about aging is more about like the just physical fitness aspect of it. The limitations of physical fitness, like running and lifting and flexibility and the aches and pains as you acquire different injuries and whatnot. That's what gets me. Like, that's what depresses me. But girls never wanted to fuck me anyway. And so in that same post, what a story mark says, each year I would say it's less and less likely that you lose your virginity. You would get more content and comfortable with being alone, to be honest, the older you get. And then Takashi says, that what happened to you? And then he says, no, but I did get more and more content without a relationship the older I got. So wait a minute. I think he lost his virginity, but went on to remain single. But that's one thing that I noticed too. As I get older, I do become like more. It's like people tell you get older, it gets worse, but it actually just becomes easier. I think a lot of it has to do with the acquisition of wisdom and now it's like when your mind works better, it's easier to just navigate and deal with life in general. And I feel like happiness and being content, peace of mind, like these things, like it's an art style. It's a skill. And I think getting better at that, maintaining your happiness and peace of mind, that's what makes it easier to deal with it as the years go by. But also, maybe you could also say a drop off in libido. Um, I still masturbate to porn and shit like that, but um, not nearly as much as when I was younger. I don't know if that's a result of like my discipline becoming better, or if it's like a drop in libido. I'm not sure if I'm experiencing like a lack of drop in libido just yet, because it might just be a discipline thing. Um, but I think also as you age, it comes with a certain sense of acceptance. And I talked about that in the 32-year-old virgin video, where I talked about how, realizing that I'm at the age now where women that are younger are more likely to see that as a deal breaker, and how I'm kind of on like the other side of that, right? Like no longer being like that young adult in his 20s who can, easily pivot into young adult love. Like I'm 33 now, so I'm undeniably at a different stage of my life and maturity. And but also in terms of access, it's not going to be the same if I were to get with a girl that's like 25 and under, and let's say 18 between 25. Let's put a limit on the bottom. But yeah, that's one thing that I definitely noticed. Like it's for me, it's gotten easier as I've gotten older. And so Kelechi says, oh, the second iris rejection video. He says, you haven't asked that many people throughout your life, man. You have not that much experience, and you said it yourself in your Black Cell video. The fact that months after you are still referencing this thing that really isn't anything in your Black Cell video, and even citing it as the first time a woman vowed with you, shows how much you're lacking in experience. Don't think it's a case of that's how it is or girls don't like you. How can you know that when you've never tried? And you said you've never really tried too. Don't use this as proof of anything. She never liked you. You still have no experiences with girls that like you. So you can't say that it all turns out the same. I can see from a mile away that there was no point asking her out. And then Crown Clan says 100. Now, one thing I will say is that he has a point in terms of like a lack of experience and trying to have a accurate assessment on my level of attractiveness and like what I'm capable of getting with girls. And it, like, I'll even admit it myself, I feel like sometimes I do exaggerate. I tend to exaggerate my own unattractiveness. And I think part of it for me is that, it's to help me stay focused. It's to help me stay focused, because I feel like the male mind in a way is like we're always looking for like sexual opportunity and things like those openings. And I just find those to be kind of a distraction. Like when I'm at the gym, for instance, of course I'm surrounded by beautiful, fit women. Oh my Lord. I saw this one girl today. She was a white girl, Paul. I mean, and not even fat Paul. Like she was like legit Paul, like slim, thick Paul, green, short. Oh my Lord. But, in situations like that, in order to keep myself focused, I'll be like, man, that girl, she ain't thinking about you. She ain't, man, fuck that bitch. Stay focused, bro. 99% chance that I'm right, but finding success with women as a man, especially nowadays, like you can't think like that. Like you got to go for that 1%, 2%, 3% chance, even if that's all you have. But yeah, like I said, I think that there is a certain sense of mystery about what my pussy potential really is. Now, I will say this though, I don't think it's very high. I do not think that is and like I said, I appreciate when people give me encouragement like this, but it's like with that poll that I made about, do you think I'm gonna stay a virgin over the next year? Don't vote with emotion, vote with your money. If you have money on the line. And I think the fact is, even people who try to encourage me and say that I have more potential than I think I do, if they had to put money on me successfully attracting, like, and not just anything, we got to put a standard on it. Like fat bitches, anybody can do that. But let's say a girl that I find physically attractive, doesn't have, the obvious red flags, basically like a woman of a reasonable standard, decent looking, no kids, not crazy, stuff like that. Would you guys put money on me being able to find that without a ridiculous amount of effort, like an unreasonable amount of effort? I don't think you would. Significant, like put a band on it, 2 bands? Fuck no. I wouldn't. But again, I do, like I said, I think there's truth to what he's saying though, as far as like the ambiguity of my pussy getting potential, because I haven't tried. But the one thing I will say is this though, and I've said this before, when you think about the word attractive, the root word there is attract. And one thing I've learned about life is that, because people will tell you it's a man's job to approach women, bullshit. One thing I know that is bullshit. Who approaches who is always based on value. And I remember there was a basketball player who was talking about like the lifestyle of being a basketball player and the groupies and things like that, and how getting women is just so much easier for them. Like it's nothing. And these things are obvious, right? And of course we're talking about like the highest of value men. But even when you look at stories of like everyday chads or like attractive guys, girls find a way to get their attention. Girls will pursue those guys. Maybe not with the same aggression and intensity as men tend to on average, but they do. I feel like even though I haven't tried, I still believe that the fact that I made it to 33 that I've made it to 33 and never even stumbled upon a a convenient situation with a girl. I think that says a lot about my value level on the dating market. I would still argue overall I am a low value man on the dating market. But the thing is, as a low value man, you can fight and struggle and lower your standards and compromise to get pussy, to get this or that. I will say that. But I think for me to make it to this age without very much attention from girls, it says something. It says something about my value. And my value definitely ain't high. And it definitely ain't me. I'm definitely a low value man on the dating market. And so on the Black Cell Experience video, the zealous approach W. Zola says the thug seeking narrative is played out. We're not a whole bunch of felony lovers. She must be a black girl. We're not a whole bunch of felony lovers. There's so much range in our community. If you're right-minded, there's a right-minded counterpart. Despite the popular narrative, I was called an Oreo too for my music taste, dialect, hobbies, etc. And then Quito Brazil responds and says, I hate to break it to you, but the thug seeking has not ever been played out at all. Matter of fact, it's still alive and kicking in the community, but here's the problem. If you're right-minded, your counterpart is worlds away from where you are at. Plus, in a community for a male, you got to be incredibly attractive, be dangerous, and go nowhere in your life in the hood. Let's not forget, be light-skinned with pretty eyes and 6 foot with tattoos, the typical advantages. Now, obviously, we're talking about the Pookie and Ray Ray discussion here. You know, women's obsession with bad boys, gangbangers, and thugs and like that. Now, I stand on the belief that black women probably more than any other race love that. They love the bad boy. I mean, now you can argue that it's exaggerated. Okay, fine, but it's at least prevalent. It's prevalent. It's not crazy to bring that topic up because we've all seen it so much. We've all, come on now. You know, when you look at the type of like black male celebrities that women idolize and really go for, like the Chris Browns and NBA young boys and shit like that, like, come on, that is like, come on, bro. Like, that is the cream of the crop as far as like what's attractive to women. Like a guy that's talented, good looking, rich, but also got that edge to him, is in a gang or gang affiliated, tough guy image, like tattooed. Girls love. Let's be honest. You know, but one thing I will say, you know, when she said if you're right-minded, there's a right-minded counterpart. I've at least experienced that somewhat in my life. I told you guys, like, that girl I met at the gym, like the level of like mental and personality compatibility, you know, it wasn't perfect, but it was something that I never experienced before. And she even talked about the difficulty of like dating when you're like us, like Oreos, or, you know, black people who don't fit like the typical stereotypes. I do think our types are, I don't know if I'd say few and far between, but we're definitely not the majority. And so I do think, you know, there's definitely the potential and possibility to find people like yourself. And even one thing I have to be honest about is that I think the fact that, you know, I've been so, I don't know if I say isolated, but like just comfortable in my environment and not branching out a lot. That's on me, because I probably could have a better chance finding girls like the one I met at the gym if I just, you know, went out more to different places other than what I'm used to. It's like when I went to Raleigh, and like, I mean, it was, God, man, it was just like a totally different place from where I'm at. You know, like where I'm at, you don't see pretty girls just walking around on the sidewalk down the street and shit like that. You see crackheads, like you see dudes, like older women, crackheads, weirdos like me, you know, shit like that. You don't see just pretty girls walking. Like girls go from house to car to function and back, or just like they go from home to car to place and back. They don't just walk around. In Raleigh, just girls just walking around freely, different, all shapes and sizes, pretty. Man, it was like it's a whole world out there, man, that I haven't experienced. So, like I said, I think there's truth to what she's saying as far as like, you know, finding your counterpart. But let's be honest, black women, they love roughnecks. They love edgy guys. And so on the overcorrecting nice guy behavior video, Shidoi Suka says, I really appreciate this perspective you had on men's performative behavior to attract women. I've been discussing stuff like this a lot with my friends and talking about how even in self-improvement spaces, men still act to appeal to women and rationalize what is good by what women romantically sexually respond to. It's not healthy for anyone involved, because we all know that simply being attracted to, sexually averse to certain traits doesn't make said traits good, bad unto themselves, respectively. And so this guy completely understood the video and what I was trying to lay out here. But what I was essentially explaining was that what I've noticed in like the manosphere and red pill spaces and whatnot is that what we've kind of done is that we have taken female preferences and we've internalized that as being like the good, because that's what would get you women, as opposed to doing what is natural to you that might get in the way of you getting women. You know, it's just as an example, I remember like this one guy was saying, you know, don't wear graphic t-shirts, you know, t-shirts that have like design, like maybe like a fucking anime design on it. those dad jokes or whatever that a eagle, whatever. Like he was saying, like wear button ups and slacks and shit, like because that's what girls like. But it's funny because it's like, okay, if girls, it's like, okay, are you saying that because that's your personal taste, or that's what you think is right, or because that's what girls like? Because let's say I flip the dynamic. Now women love guys who wear graphic tees. Oh my God. Now the narrative is, don't wear buttons up. You look corny and nerdy. Wear graphic tees with your favorite bands on them or something. And that's what I'm saying is, like, I feel like a lot of what we do is because girls like it. And then like you say, we rationalize that as being the good because that's what would get us the pussy. And I'm just saying it's something to think about in terms of like how much of our behaviors is dictated by what women want and what they expect of us, as opposed to who we naturally are and our natural innate taste and preferences for different things. Also, like the iPhone, Android shit, do you want an iPhone? Do you legitimately prefer iPhone, or did you get it because girls like it, or you wanted to fit in? Do you legitimately like Jordans, or did you just get it because that's what's cool? That's the type of things that I'm talking about. And of course, the whole asshole nice guy thing. Are you being a jerk? Are you being abrasive and negging and calling her names because you think they'll get you more pussy? Or is that just who you are? Just your character. You're kind of an asshole. and I can't say what it means for everybody. I just think it's a case by case thing. Because I know for me, like my natural inclination is just to be more like friendly and like I'm very self-amusing. I like to amuse myself. I laugh. I have fun. I'm a gregarious type of person. But I recognize that, a lot of girls, they don't like that shit. And for me, I got to make that decision. Like, do I continue being myself, or do I change to make other people like me? And I just choose to be myself and deal with the consequences that come with it. And so Flashfire says on the same video, it's funny the direct rise in incel culture, toxic masculinity being taught to boys very young, and this loneliness male epidemic is simply because young boys are now centering their entire life around women and doing everything humanely possible to appeal to them. BP, men's, maybe black pill, I don't know, men's cosmetics, men's fashion, these are all things that have seen an insane rise in how much money they produce. Simply because men aren't actually genuinely interested in these things, they are solely doing it for women. That's why you also see a more harsher, open pushback towards men who don't express themselves in a traditional masculine way towards women. Men and women and gay men all using words like sassy, zesty, and more to emasculate the man that is doing anything they don't like or solely being different. But we live in 2025, which is funny. We are in a society where we accept people for being gay, but we use these same rhetorics. I also do not believe it's women's fault. If you went into a store and didn't see many options, you would take whatever you could afford and what was best in that store for you. But once you get to the mega store, you may become more frivolous because you have so many options or wanting to try that item and that item. Right now, I would argue Western society currently is worse for the average man. The average woman has more social power than you. While the men in power and has things going for him is the sweet treat every woman wants to try. Of course, outside of highly progressed countries, it's way worse to be a woman, but just saying. So he got a lot that he wanted to get off his chest here. But yeah, this is another guy who understood the concept of the video, though, where, a lot of the things are being pushed on men and whatnot is because, again, centering women. What does it take to get women nowadays? How do I have to act? How do I have to dress? How much money do I need? And things like, and again, dude, I'm not against it as far as like, if that's your purpose, because look, some guys just want to get bitches no matter what. And I'm not going to get in the way of that, but I'm just saying, when you start being more concerned about, things like your integrity and principles and like who you are, like you. That's when, okay, then let's have this conversation about, what are you doing because it's who you are and what you want to do versus, what are you doing and what are you taking on because you want other people to like you, because you want women to like you. I just always felt like that was an interesting conversation. And I don't think a lot of people realize how much of themselves is based on, like, their behaviors are based on trying to fit in. And not just when it comes to women, but fitting in general. And I always just try to reflect and think like deeply about like my own taste and who I am and like how I feel about things versus how other people feel about it. And I just try to stay rooted in my own perception, my own opinion, my own like me and what I feel. Not saying to be closed-minded, but that I have an accurate assessment of who I am and how I feel about shit, and that I'm in line with that, regardless of how other people might feel. And then he talks about how women use the word sassy and zesty and things like that for guys being different. And it's even in that video where the girl was saying, I put it in the video where she was saying a guy being nice makes her think that he's gay. But really, like, and you always have to read between the lines. What that really is, like he said, it's a subtle emasculation tactic. It's not just oh, is he? It's just they're trying to emasculate guys who don't fit this mold of traditional masculinity. It's not about is he really gay or this or that. It's really just trying to emasculate you, regardless of what you are. Gay, bi, or straight, whatever. It's trying to emasculate you as a man based on behaviors that they don't like because you're not fitting into like this, again, the ooga booga alpha male standard of being a man. And then he goes on to talk about how it's not women's fault. They just have more value and more options. And that's another thing that I agree with too. I talk about these dynamics and things, but I never hold it against women. It's only natural if you have access to better options. Why wouldn't you take advantage of it? I would do the same thing. Now, you can make the argument that it's not sustainable, that we live in a civilization that was built on the foundation of monogamy and marriage and, a more balanced value dynamic between the average man and woman. You can make that argument all day, and the side effects, good and bad, of feminism, sure. But me personally, I don't hold it against women. I think they're taking advantage of the value that they have, and who am I to try to get in the way of that? So my way of dealing with it was just to not take it personally or hold it against women, but was just to find my own lane. Look, if I don't have value when it comes to dating, I'll find value somewhere else. I'll basically get in where I fit in. And he says, I just want to give context. I feel I can say this strongly because I'm 19. I grew up and interacted with these spaces. I want to major in fashion, and that's mainly the reason for a lot of the rises for all of the spaces. Lack of women or doing things for women. He's gonna so I think that's probably why he took or had that second paragraph there. He wants to major in fashion. I can see how, some girls might look at it and be like, oh, he wants to major in fashion. Oh, right. But I think that's actually pretty cool. And You Can't Beat K says, men have centered their lives around women since the beginning of history. Women have changed, not men. Most men always wanted to just get married. You've always had men that just wanted to fuck hoes. Women are the ones who've gone crazy now, doing 1,000 men in one day challenges and not wanting to settle down into their 30s. So he's bringing up that, men, again, centering women isn't necessarily anything new. And that's definitely true. But I think the difference is that and he talks about it, women have changed. Now, I think men have changed too, if we're being completely fair. But I look at it more so as like a societal thing where the balance of power has shifted so much that women are starting to write the rules of what men have to do in order to obtain them. I think before, when the average man had more value, when men were more than likely, even the average man was going to be making more money than women and having access to better jobs and things like that. And women had more social and cultural expectations to be more chaste and not be promiscuous and things like that. That's when the balance of power was more even or closer to even than what it is today. And so as a man, you could probably just be yourself and you still had those things to your advantage. So a guy like myself, goofy, gregarious guy, well, years ago, I would have just been making much more money than the average woman. I would have had access to better jobs than women. And, they wouldn't have been as promiscuous and wouldn't have been as freely able to engage with different options and social media. So I would have had those advantages to where, I could be myself and still probably find a decent woman. But now without those advantages, I think men have to compensate and compromise a hell of a lot more and put in more effort. I think that's where we begin to lose ourselves, where the asking price becomes so high that you begin having to do things that you really don't want to do. It's kind of like, I know it's kind of a crazy example, but when you look at the entertainment industry and how some people, in order to get ahead, they have to, fuck, like the whole Weinstein situation, for instance. You don't want to fuck this ugly, fat, old man, but if you want to get ahead, then you got to go outside of your integrity and your honor and do that. And I feel like that's an extreme example, but for men, in a sense, it's kind of become like, I'm seeing guys now unironically call approaching women a humiliation ritual. Right. And I get it. Like, I see what they're saying. That's how it feels sometimes. It's like, that's how much the power has skewed in favor of women. And then he also says, I think the bad boy shit is all nonsense. I think it's all about looks. Women love nice guys and the most evil men you'll see, so long as they're physically attractive. I don't think it's deeper than that. I think people just deny the importance of looks because they don't want to deny all women are like that. Another point of denial is how they'll point out the more niche exceptions. First of all, any relationship that started before online dating became mainstream is meaningless. We don't live in that world anymore. Telling men to date based on ideas from that era is like telling dudes to get jobs by walking in with a business suit and giving the boss a firm handshake. Another reason for these exceptions people see is just proximity and just be first theory. When you're in high school, middle school, most of the girls you are around aren't going to be on online dating. They aren't going to have the literal thousands of options adult women have. A man's odds of finding a mate are much higher in their environment. Telling men who aren't in that environment that they should compare themselves to men who succeeded while they were is stupid and unhelpful. Now, I do disagree strongly with the bad boy take there. Mainly because, I see it so much. I've seen it so much. Now, don't get me wrong. Looks are obviously very important. Don't get me wrong. But I think that the nice guy behavior versus the bad boy behavior, like if, for instance, if you take an average dude, average nice guy, average bad boy, I'm giving the edge to the bad boy. Take it up a notch. Highly attractive guy. So you have highly attractive guy, good, nice guy, right? Chivalrous, milady, right? Versus bad boy asshole. I'm giving the edge to him. I think the bad boy behavior thing is definitely a factor. Looks very important, but I think to completely discount behavior, personality, like those types of vibrations, I think that's very inaccurate. I think these things come into play. And like I said, I've seen it I've seen it myself, and many people can attest to this dynamic. This is definitely some real shit, but looks, yeah, very important. And he also says, exceptions, people, it's just the proximity just be first theory. When you're in high school, middle school, most of the girls you're around aren't going to be. Oh, and you know, I thought about this too, though. I think a lot of guys are, I don't know if I say fucked, but I think that where a lot of guys are fucking up at, and it's not entirely their fault, because a lot of us being raised by like single mothers or not having men in our lives to push us to reach our potential younger, it kind of sets us up for these problems. But you'll notice like a lot of guys are basically going like all their teenage years and even like some of their early 20s without dating or having sex at all, and then trying to get into it. I think that's like a really bad idea. I mean, well, depending on how you look at it, because some guys need that. Like, I would say that was good for me. I wouldn't change it. But the reason why I say that is because the environment of being in high school and in college, I think college is really the sweet spot, but it can go even as early as like high school. You know, you're in an environment where you're surrounded by young girls, and a lot of them have not reached like max value and understanding of their value. And to be fair, the guys haven't either. Basically, I think you have a big advantage as a guy if you're lucky or have like the push to be closer to reaching that higher value, because good women haven't all been scooped up yet. You know, it's like when I look at the girls I grew up with in high school and shit like that, as I've gotten older and older, like more and more of them have kind of just like, I don't know where they are or what they're doing. You know, like they gotten like scooped up, married, in relationships, had kids and things like that. Had a lot of different experiences with men, good and bad. So if now at 33, I'm trying to date women of my peer group, like the good ones are gone. They're scooped up. Like, and so, yeah, I think now I hesitate to promote this, but I see the logic of, again, what he's saying is that in a way, guys have to start earlier, because dating is really it's a fucking rat race. And the earlier you figure this shit out, the earlier you start to maximize your potential, the better. Because once women get out of high school and they get into college and they can really start spreading their wings and they have more access to higher value men and they're unattached, it's only gonna get harder from there. It's not gonna get easier. It's only going to get harder. But the difficult thing is, as a young man in high school and college, is how do you reach that higher level of value without being naturally attractive or having that push from a father or other men in your life. And then Sleeper says, it's already been proven that most attractive personality traits to women are narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. Okay, I'm gonna sound real dumb because I can't pronounce that word. But looks matter, of course, but given the option, women will always select for the traits listed above before any others, to the point that women would rather sleep with an ugly criminal than a nice model tier looks guy. You might think that's an extreme comparison, but it's measurably true. Though it's important to note the difference in who women want to sleep with and who they want to date. Women want to sleep with psychopathic narcissists, but their ideal relationship is a model beta butts. Basically, beta butts, beta fucks. And so again, I get what You Can't Beat is saying in terms of like the importance of looks, but we can't ignore how personality and behavior factors into the equation as well. And when you start taking that into consideration, okay, then what are women looking for when it comes? Okay, we get it. Looks matter. Looks are important. Great. But then, okay, when we start looking at personality, what is it that women are drawn to? And that's where you start to see them liking the bad boys. Like he said, narcissism, Machiavellianism, psychopathic behavior, things like that. So when you take that into consideration, it can't be denied that bad boys have that advantage. There is a bad boy advantage the same way there is the Chad looks advantage, the height advantage, the dick size advantage, and things like that, the money advantage. So when we start talking about bad boys and shit like that, that's just the advantage, like the advantage on the personality side. Being nice and thoughtful and considerate and a gentleman doesn't tend to help much when it comes to attracting women like being an asshole does. And then oh man, this this thing got a lot of traction. So Flashfire says the reason why the bad boy thing exists, if you are an attractive man in a vacuum of other men, you are attractive. You don't have to really emotionally mature in terms of treating people super well, because you don't have to actually work that hard of getting people. The reason the nice guy exists is because most nice guys are guys that were insecure or are insecure, use their niceness as a shield to be a guy that will almost never cause any trouble. If you heard this before, the guy who takes risks in saying things to women are ironically more attractive, because if he is confident and takes risks, it can click in some women's brain that he has zero issue conversing or getting women. A nice guy has scarcity, so they take every opportunity as something they don't want to mess up. The nice guy isn't particularly about someone who is just nice. It's about a man who is safe, insecure, and almost a soft masculine. They do too much for a woman without getting anything. The only women who truly find that attractive probably are just simply attracted to him. That's why nice guys finish last. They want the guy who will provide without questions asked, who they know is loyal, who isn't much of a problem after they have fun, because that's the ideal long term. So this is kind of going into like the nice guy stereotype, which is to say that are you genuinely nice, or is the niceness a cover for insecurity and a lack of capability and masculinity? And you know, I talked about this in the video. Of course, being nice doesn't mean that you're not masculine. It doesn't mean that you're insecure, but I think that is like the assumption that can come with that. Oh, you know, not basically, it's kind of like what people say. People take your kindness for weakness, but being kind doesn't necessarily mean that you are weak, but that is the assumption that comes with it. And even on the other side of the spectrum, being an asshole doesn't make you tough. Like you can bark as loud as you want to, but you know, when fists start flying, can you actually stand up for yourself? You know, I've seen people who are like aggressive type people back down from direct confrontations when they saw it coming. Like, and not in a sense of like avoiding unnecessary confrontation, but like they like, I've seen people that, again, they have that kind of asshole behavior, but then they would duck away from situations that they really should have confronted head on. I've seen that. And so even then, like people who do that whole asshole thing, that doesn't mean that they're going to rise to the occasion every time or when it matters most. A lot of times for some people, it's just really just, it's natural and easy for them to just be more of an asshole and aggressive. And sometimes it comes from a lack of emotional control and things like that. Like it's not always stemming from strength and masculinity. Sometimes it's just a lack of emotional control and just being fucking crazy. And then he goes on to say, also, it's not solely about looks. Even in high school and now in college, a bad boy just has one overarching major plus: looks, height, or status, or no, one or those three. Rappers may not be good looking, but they have status. One guy may not be super attractive, but he is tall, so it makes him attractive. And lastly, is the guy actually attractive? Long as you have something women consistently find attractive, it gives those guys egos. But no matter how much people want to cope, that I don't care confidence is that I don't care confidence is truly attractive to women. And then Conda says, facts. How is it that the whole nice guys versus jerks thing is still a topic of discussion in 2025? It's a relic from the 2000s. If a woman doesn't have any lust for you, being an asshole isn't going to change that. You'll just be an ugly asshole and people will hate you even more. So that's basically saying that in order, like, a girl still has to like you, which I agree with that too. A girl has to like you and be attracted to you and want to fuck you. But I think when that box is checked, the asshole thing can only be a bonus from there, you know. But yeah, if a girl, for instance, like if it's a white girl just does not fuck black guys, me being an asshole is not going to make it any easier to get in her pants if that's a hard standard for her, because I'm not fitting like her race requirement or a height requirement and things. Again, looks still important, but when that box is checked, you still got to fulfill those personality expectations. And then you can't beat says this is completely incoherent. I'm 6'5" by the way. Okay, that's it. Whew. Okay, man, that was a long one. I'm gonna probably split this one into 2 or 3 parts, but I hope you guys enjoyed that comments video. Always make sure you leave comments. If you say something interesting, I'll be sure to maybe respond. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I will see you on the next one. So, Johnny.